next week to look at that. So for week 3, you'll notice on the syllabus we are talking about introduction to research. That sounds like a pretty basic, pretty general topic, but when you stop to think about it, what do we really know about research? How much research have we ever really done before? What does it mean to do real, valid academic research? That is really the foundation of this course. That is the one thing I want you guys to leave this course with, because even though some of you might be seniors taking this course, some of you might be non-traditional students taking this course. So it's not like I just have freshmen taking Comp 2. All kinds of people do take this class. So we have to ask ourselves, based on our level of experience, based on our familiarity with research. So if you have taken other classes before, say you're a senior or an upper level student who is just now taking 1020 because they need it to graduate, as a gen ed required class, you have to have it to graduate. Some things you might have noticed in your other classes, or if you're a freshman who is, taking other gen ed classes, and you have professors who, expect you to know what they are talking about when they refer to a certain subject, when they refer to a certain style of writing. So really, in English 1020, that is the kind of writing, whether you've been exposed to it before or if it's brand new to you, I'm trying to teach you how to write in that mode, write in that genre of writing, that academic style, academic research style of writing. So that is why we ask ourselves, what is research? Okay? So you might have noticed in the first mini essay assignment, in the assignment sheet for that, I asked you to generate topics that you might be working with or you might want to work with for your final research paper. And one of the specifications for that kind of topic was it needed to be a question. So when we ask ourselves, what is research? I should probably be writing backwards. I guess you can't really see that in the video. But when we ask ourselves, what is research? Research is trying to answer a question, right? You are trying to answer a question. So for your first mini essay, that's why for whatever topics that you chose to write about in that assignment, they needed to be questions that you were asking. Okay? I think a lot of confusion can arise with students in classes like this when their instructor, their professor asks them to write something, and they ask them to write, this paper, this academic paper, something you were writing in an academic environment, but they don't really tell them how to do that. They just expect them to know how to write that paper already. And a lot of students haven't been taught how to do that yet, which is something I seek to teach in this class. I want you guys to leave this class knowing how to write in that mode. So we use the example of an academic research paper to model that. Okay, we are working within that frame. We're working within that model of writing, that genre of writing. Okay. So when we sit down and start thinking about what is something we want to research, okay, your research has to start with asking a question, right? You have to start by asking a question. So when we're looking at valid research topics, does it have to be something that has never been researched before? No, that is a question I get a lot. Your topic does not have to be something that has already been done before, okay? Or has, there's already stuff out there about it, okay? if you remember from the reading, there was the Kenneth Burke's parlor metaphor. So if you remember that metaphor, it's essentially a metaphor describing how you are joining a conversation. You are joining an ongoing conversation, okay? So what you'll notice as you get further into the topic that you decided to write about, that you decided to do your research on, you're going to find sources, right? Part of research, you have to find sources, right, to back up whatever claim. That's kind of a formula you have. If you are doing academic writing, if you make a claim, it's like a formula. If you say this, then you have to back it up with a quote, right? If X, then Y, however you want to think about it as a formula, okay? So your statements need to be backed up by things. You can't just make a statement and not support it, okay? So going back to the parlor metaphor, where you are joining a conversation, you are joining in to those people who are already talking about that thing that you're talking about. It has already started before you decided you were going to research it, okay? So the book, the reading that I assigned uses the parlor, Kenneth Burke's parlor metaphor. I have my own way that I like to describe it. Instead of a parlor, it is a dinner table, okay? So you are going to a dinner where everyone is bringing their own dish, okay? So when you get there, you're running a little bit late. Everyone else is already there. Everyone else is already sitting at the table, and they have brought their own dish to the table. They have prepared their own dish, and have brought it to the table, okay? So your job is to prepare your dish and add it to the table, okay? So when I use this metaphor of preparing a dish, that is what I'm talking about with your writing process. Because if any of you cook, or if any of you, have eaten a poorly prepared meal before, you know that the thing you're eating, you want to make sure the person who prepared it did a good job, right? You can tell the difference between a poorly prepared meal and a well-prepared meal, okay? So take that metaphor and put it into terms of writing and research, right? Or forming an argument even. You can tell pretty easily when someone has a poorly prepared argument, they have a poorly prepared paper, and they're trying to pass that off as the final product, okay? So that is something we want to avoid in each of those regards. We want to avoid coming off as like we didn't do our homework, we didn't do our research, and now we're trying to pass off a piece of writing that is not well prepared, okay? So the trick is that preparation. That good piece of writing, that excellent dish that someone has prepared was not made without following steps, right? So we are starting this process of research, okay? We are starting this process. That means we do not expect our work to be perfect right out the gate, okay? The work is not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty, but you have to start somewhere. That is what the first mini essay, that is the purpose of that assignment, okay? Mini essay number 1 is your starting of the process. You are generating topics. You are entering into this sphere of research where you will eventually join that conversation. You will meet the other people at the parlor. You will bring your dish to the table, okay? We're not there yet, but we're going to work on that. So that is going back to the topic of this week's video update. I guess this will be the video update for week 3. That is, how do you pick a valid research topic? What counts as a valid research topic? That's easy. Anything that is a question that you are trying to find the answer to, okay? That is step 1. Doesn't matter if there's already material, if someone else has already done this before. No, that doesn't matter because that's going to be unavoidable. You are going to quickly find out that this has already been, this conversation has already started. You're late to the party, but you're trying to add into the conversation, okay? So, you're putting your oar in. That's another way that the book describes it. So what do when you start with your topic, right? You start with your question. You might remember the Sports Illustrated example from the reading. That student in that example started out with a pretty generic, pretty basic topic, but through working with the sources, encountering the sources, reading through these issues of Sports Illustrated, that student was able to change and adapt the original topic once he or she began encountering this other material, right? So that is going to be your second step from starting your topic, starting with picking a topic. Then you go and see what is out there that relates to your topic, and you consume that. You read that material, then that helps you strengthen your topic. It helps you define your topic, better define your topic, and maybe even give you a new direction that you haven't considered yet. Something exciting that you have discovered about this topic that you would like to research. Okay? So you'll also notice on the syllabus, we're talking about the big five. Okay? Usually when I have a classroom full of students, I like to have them guess what I mean when I'm talking about the big five. I get some pretty funny answers. The big five are 5 topics that are no-no topics. Okay, they're topics I do not want you to write about. If you could guess why I'm telling you I don't want you to write about certain topics, certain topics do not lend themselves well to the kind of paper that we are trying to write in this class. Okay, so I'll see if I can remember all 5 off the top of my head. Number 1 is anything overtly religious. So if you have a topic that could pertain to religion, run it by me first, and I will tell you if it can work or not, okay? So that first one, religion. It's something we can definitely discuss, but usually when you're talking about religion, it is not going to lend itself well to a research paper, right? Because your research needs to be unbiased, needs to be objective, right? So that is going to be a common theme you'll notice in these big 5 that I'm talking about right now, okay? So religion is a big one. Kind of going with that, abortion, right? Abortion, again, that is a topic that you're probably not going to be able to be unbiased and write an objective research paper about, okay? So, number 3, we're going to say gun control. You're going to notice the pattern here. Why would gun control not make a good topic for a research paper? Because you're probably going to be trying to defend it one way or the other. It's something where your mind is already made up, and your writing will just reflect you trying to defend your position, and that is not a valid research topic, okay? That's not a valid approach to research. Number 3, or we already did 3, 4. This is another really big one. Legalizing weed. I do not want to read any papers about legalizing weed. Please just don't do that. I don't like that topic. Again, these are all things that we can discuss, but they are not things that will make a good research paper. Okay? Number 5. I'm just going to do this in a very broad category. Gay rights. Again, that is something that people feel very strongly about one way or another. And you're probably not going to create a good research paper out of that. You're just going to end up defending your belief. So that is why I say these topics, you can write about them in other contexts, but for the context of our class, these are not good topics to do a research paper on. Research is answering a question, not defending something you already believe. So if you have any questions about any of these topics, or you think your topic might involve any of these things, just run your topic by me first, okay? Just let me know what you're thinking about doing your research project on, what topics you think you want to write about, and we can go from there. But just right off the bat, I just want to tell all my students that these topics, they can be worthy topics in other modes of writing, but for a research paper, these do not produce good research papers, okay? So just keep that in mind. That's really all I wanted to say about the Big Five. If you have any other questions about it, just let me know. Okay? So moving on. Let me check my notes here. Before I go, I wanted to recap the reading from week 2, Allegory of the Cave. I read your guys' discussion posts on that reading. You guys were awesome. You were getting it. So some students question, why do I assign Allegory of the Cave as a reading for a class of this nature, right? Why does English 1020 read Plato's Allegory of the Cave? So I think that Allegory of the Cave is just a very good introduction to what we're going to be getting into as far as the rest of the class, right? So it's it's an allegory, so it's pretty over dramatic. It's over dramatic for the purpose of making the point, to make that point, to get it across. So of course we're not all literally in a cave in chains, watching shadow projections going across in front of us. That's the allegory, that's the metaphor. But what we do as researchers is we try to find the way to climb out of an existence that might be, not in the light. It might be that in the cave dwelling kind of existence. So what we want to do as researchers is to go and get out into that light. And if you remember from the reading, it's a painful process because it's a growing process. We have to leave behind things that might not be real, might not be true. What is real and what is true, we don't know yet until we get outside into the light and see it for ourselves, right? So we can't know what is actually the truth, what is actually real, until we do the process, until we do the research process and enter ourselves into that light where we see, what is actually out there. So that's why that allegory, I really like to stress that part of the painful ascent out of the cave. If you go back and look at the reading again, you'll remember the prisoner, it was not a pleasant journey to get out of the cave. And even when he got out of the cave, it was still unpleasant because the sunlight was just too much for his eyes, as only ever seen shadow. It nearly blinded him. And then when he goes back into the cave, this also applies to our research, okay? What good is our research? What good is it to do to reach that level of truth and light about a subject if we go back to the people who are unaware still and we can't effectively communicate that, okay? So that is why in this class we address the research process, which is climbing out of the cave, right? It is going and seeing what is true, what is in that realm of the sunlight, okay? That is the research process. Now the writing process comes into play when we go back and we try to communicate, right? Think back to the week 1 reading about rhetoric. Why does rhetoric matter? Why is it important that you are aware of how rhetoric works? Because once you understand rhetoric for what it is, you can see how it is used to maybe manipulate people, or how people who don't have a clear understanding of these rhetorical tools, these rhetorical situations, if they don't have that understanding, then you can essentially do anything with them because you are using rhetorical strategies to communicate these messages that you want people to believe, right? Go back and look at the reading for the week 1 readings for examples of that, right? Okay. So the reason why we use Allegory of the Cave for introduction into the research process and the writing process as well is when the prisoner goes back into the cave after being on the surface and seeing the truth and the light, right? He cannot effectively communicate with those cave dwellers. So that's why we don't want to end up like that prisoner. We don't want to put ourselves in that position. We want to be able to gather our research, right? Gather all that stuff, and then effectively present it to the people, excuse me, to the people who have not done the research yet, right? We have done the research. It is then our job to package it in the form of, the writing that we're going to do and present that. That'll be our completed dish that we bring to the dinner table and set down and say, this is the research. This is what I have prepared. This is my final, final product here that I am giving and putting it out into the world, right? So we want to make sure that looks good. We don't want it to be poorly prepared, right? I think that's it for today. This will be the video update. I will give further instructions on what I want you to do for your discussion posts. But for now, just make sure you watch this video. Let me know if you have any questions about anything that I went over in the video. And if I can find time to snag classrooms and lock the door so no one can hear me in the hallway, I think I might do some more of these. Let me know if you guys liked this kind of video lecture style. If you do, I will do more of them. If you didn't think it was effective, I will find another way, I guess, find something else to do. So let me know what your feedback is on this kind of approach. I personally think it is better than being, completely just through text online, right? So this is probably the closest thing I can get to lecturing like we would if we were not in COVID-19 as we are right now. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that today. Let me know if you have any questions about anything, okay?